I call the member for Throsby.
Wakefield.
Wakefield, my apologies.
Thank you.
Wakefield.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, look, this has got to be the strangest matter of public importance ever brought before this House. It is a very strange issue to debate, this issue of an unelected committee, and I was really quite perplexed about what it might be about, but I've listened carefully to the debate, and I listened in particular to the member for Flinders talking about the Boston Tea Party and other things. And I can't really understand it. This parliament's elected, the government's elected, any committee, any report, it comes to us, they recommend to us, they're subordinate to this parliament, to the democratic process, to the national interest, in the same way every other institution set up by this parliament is, the same way the Reserve Bank is, the same way all these other bodies are, the Murray-Darling Basin Authority and other authorities set up under Australian law are always subordinate to this parliament. And I couldn't work out what we would be debating for such a length of time, but I now realise it's the Boston Tea Party. It's this attempt to conjure up an Orwellian fantasy, a dark Orwellian fantasy where we're ruled not by the parliament, not by democracy, but by some unelected body tucked away somewhere. And it's this sort of attempt. This is the Liberal Party's new politics, because it's an attempt to undermine this parliament's legitimacy. It's an attempt to undermine the policy intent of the government. It's an attempt to appeal to extremists and to fruitcakes who now populate the activist base of the coalition. And we know that the first signs of this actually appeared last year, in February of last year, when Tony Abbott, just 2 days after launching his climate change policy, met with Lord Monckton, a British lord. He met with him in secret. Tony refused, the member for Warringah refused to let us know what it was all about. But Lord Monckton told us what it was all about. He said that the proponents of climate change wanted to establish a world government that would shut down democracy worldwide. So we can see that there's just sort of elements of that in the MPI today. And what else did Lord Monckton say after that meeting? He said, Lord Monckton added that Mr Abbott's policies to encourage tree planting and help energy-save industry would help address genuine environmental problems. And he said, it is indeed better to have a policy which nods to the issue of climate change for those who still believe, and there are some diehards who still believe, that fixes some of the genuine environmental issues that are a lot cheaper than enormous amounts of money diverted to this ridiculous climate thing. And he said that it could be turned off. He said it could be turned off if necessary. That's what one of the things Mr Monckton said.
Lord Monckton.
Lord Monckton, yes, Lord Monckton said. Now, no. I was just looking forward to looking for what to miss. I was just looking for what Mr Turnbull later said. So that was what Lord Monckton said. He said that this is a great policy. Eventually, we can. It gives a nod to climate change, and if necessary, can be easily turned off. Now we notice. Fast forward a year, the member for Wentworth goes on Lateline and says, "I think there are two virtues of this." From the point of Mr Abbott and Mr Hunt. One is it can be easily terminated. If in fact climate change is proved to not be real, which obviously some people believe, I don't, if you believe climate change is going to be proved unreal, a scheme like this can be brought to an end. So we can see here that from Lord Monckton to Malcolm Turnbull's quotes, that the opposition have basically got a policy which is all about chicanery. It's all about conspiracy theories. It's all about designing a policy that will get them through the next election, provide them with a fig leaf for their resistance to the idea that the science is right. And we heard it in the member for Riverina's defence of this motion. He clearly doesn't believe that climate change is a problem. And so the references in this MPI to an unelected committee are really targeted at those, as I said before, those extremists who now make up the coalition's activist base. Now, we then heard their attacks on good Australians. We heard their attacks on Kate Blanchett. We heard their attacks on Michael Caton, people who are a great part of our cultural life, who have worked hard, who are our exports to the world. And we heard, Barnaby Joyce out there, Senator Joyce out there attacking Kate, saying she was hurting people. And we heard the Leader of the Opposition in this Parliament yesterday abusing her for having an eco-mansion. And what this is this deliberate bullying and abuse of Australian actors, this revolting political abuse that we just heard from the member for Riverina, what it's an attempt to do is to paint good Australians as elitists. That's what it's an attempt to do. It's an attempt, and it's all part of this Boston Tea Party, Republican revolt against the elites, Sarah Palin. That's the political appeal to it. That's the strategy behind it. It's anti-elitist, it's pitchfork-wielding conspiracy theorists, and we saw them out the front here of this Parliament at their carbon tax rally, and right behind the Leader of Opposition's head was a sign saying, "Say no to the carbon tax for UN, IMF, global governments equals Agenda 21 genocide agenda." I mean, these are the sort of people who are supporting the opposition. And so we have this. I mean, poor Kate Blanchett. Poor Kate Blanchett. She must have thought that she was back in the Lord of the Rings, surrounded by hobgoblins, surrounded by orcs, these horrible Denzians of the political world, horrible Denzians of the conservative world, attacking her, having a go at her. The member for Warringah down here, the Gollum of Australian politics, clutching his precious ring of negativity, precious ring of opposition, desperately attempting to extract the last morsels of political gain out of his opposition to sensible Australians, verballing Dr. Garneau. And this is the opposition's political strategy. It has nothing to do with good policy in this country. It's all about pandering to foreign extremists like Lord Monkton. So we've got, this pandering to Lord Monkton, meeting with him in private. So, Lord Monkton, your views are so good. And then talking about elected committees. Well, at least they're committees of Australians. At least they're not foreign lords. At least we're not appealing to this weird collection of international conspiracy theorists. And all I can say is that if that's really the opposition's strategy, it is not going to work. It is simply a strategy that is designed to cover up their massive divisions, and their divisions are big. Because we have, on one hand, the believers in climate change, and there are many in the opposition, and they are horrified at the position their party is taking. And then we have those, like the member for Riverina, who are quite happy to deny climate change, who are quite happy to do anything, who are quite happy to quote environmentalists who put it all on black, all on some technology turning up in the future. And if we have a problem, well, we'll just learn to adapt as the planet burns, and the next generation of Australians and citizens around the world have to deal with an ever-increasing warmer planet, and all the consequences go with that. We have a strategy that basically is, to sort of get through the next election with this policy of direct subsidy, which will cost the nation $30 billion to top-end polluters. And if there are no changes in that, it might, by 2050, cost the future government $18 billion a year. I mean, that will be the small investment. That will be the small investment the coalition makes, this weird sort of pork barrelling exercise for the big end of town. And this is what the Liberal Party is now degenerated to. It's why Fraser and Hewson and others are walking away from you, because what has happened is that the Liberal Party, this once great bastion of moderation in Australian politics, has become this sort of home for foreign extremists, for bizarre ideologies of world government. And it rejects the influence of sensible Australians, sensible, decent, hard-working Australians like Kate Blanchett. And we hear this abuse in the Parliament of a great Australian actress, a great Australian actor like Michael Caton, this sort of abuse of good Australians. And why do we have this? Why do we have this political strategy? Well, it's to deny the undeniable. And we know a little while ago, that the member for Flinders said, well, this is what he said in his honours thesis, the market system is a preferable regime as it ensures that the polluter bears full responsibility for the cost of his or her conduct. And we know that the shadow treasurer, the member for North Sydney, said last year, inevitably we'll have a price on carbon. We'll have to. Inevitably we'll have a price on carbon, we'll have to. So the member for North Sydney knows that one day we'll price carbon, and the member for Flinders knows we'll price carbon. The only people who won't admit it are people like the member for Riverina, and basically what they want to engage in is this appealing to conspiracy theories, listening to foreign extremists, abusing good Australians, purging all reason and good policy from their party, and finally ignoring the national interest and the moral obligation we have to future generations.